Welcome to Fret Buzz, the podcast. My name is Joe McMurray.
And I'm Aaron Sefcik.
And today we have one of maybe the best guitarist I've seen in the whole Hampton Roads region. Easily the best guitarist I've seen in the Hampton Roads region. Mr. Jason Cale is a guitarist, producer, songwriter, vocalist. I've had the opportunity to see him perform, and he blew me away, and I got to see him give a kind of a seminar at the East Coast Guitar Convention, and I'm really excited to have you, Jason.
Thanks. I'm excited to be here, Joe. And Aaron, nice to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jason, you have a band called the Jason Cale Band, and this is a relatively new lineup of guys, right? In the last couple years. This band, and I also have PC and J acoustic duo with my wife. We've been doing that. That's you?
Forever, man. Yep.
Oh my gosh, I see you guys on the lineups for different places. I didn't realize it was you.
Yep, that's us too.
Okay.
That's my wife and I, man.
Okay.
Diversified, bro.
Yeah.
The Jason Cale Band, it actually started, I guess, seriously, in April 2017, and we just kind of started out we were doing jazz. Like, I was asked to play jazz on Thursdays at this little brewery, man, and we just, so we started doing jazz, and then I've always loved blues and that kind of stuff. So I would always integrate the blues and jazz and fusion. I enjoy, and so we started doing cool arrangements of like Allen Holdsworth. Like we play Fred from Allen Holdsworth or a Tony Williams project, I guess you could say. And I started kind of just going back into my originals, and we kind of were like, oh, this is feeling pretty good. And it was just a little trio, bass, drums, and me on guitar and singing. And I just happened to go to an open mic around town, and I was just sitting in with some guys, and they were like, do you have a band? I'm like, kinda. And we were asked to do this festival. He just heard me play, and he was like, man, I like your style, and if you've got a band, man, I want to book you for this festival. And I was like, okay, cool. So I got my, the trio together, and I wrote a couple of new songs, and I was just like, let's just try it out and see what it feels like. And we actually found our voice at that festival, and I was like, this feels good. And you know what? I'm gonna pursue this little Jason Cale band trio thing. And it's just kind of grown from that. That was in September of 2017, and then the current lineup I have of dudes is Donnell Smith on bass, Randy Hagen on the drums. He's been playing with me for years. But Donnell Smith, man, once he came into the picture as the bassist, that just totally changed everything, and everything just kind of locked into place. I was like, okay, this is what my songs are supposed to sound like. And
what is it about his playing that you really like?
It's his pocket. I've always enjoyed playing with contemporary gospel musicians, man. Love it. I don't know. To me, it's like those contemporary gospel musicians, they're some of the best. And then if they can read music on top of it, that makes them monster musicians, man. And he does. He can sight read. He can read anything. He can do jazz. He can do everything. I just love playing with people that make me step up my own game, and that's what they do, man. Randy and Donnell for sure, and then occasionally I'll have keyboard players play and sax players, and but that's my core, man. The trio, that's my core. We can go out and do a show and with just the trio and be happy. Anything else on top of it is just icing on a cake, man.
That's what I saw your trio at Froggy's.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you play with the keyboard player.
I'll use Ryan Moses and sometimes Randall Lawson on the keys, and then the sax player I've been using is Jeff Saunders, and sometimes Dave Batek as well. Fantastic musicians I've been playing with for years.
I had a trio back up in the Washington, D.C. area, and we eventually added a keyboard player. And I mean, I love the trio, and I love with three people, you can really communicate and kind of take the song where you want live. But man, when I got a keyboard player, I felt like I was floating on top of this cloud of harmony. It really changed everything for me. I didn't have to do as much as the guitarist, and I really liked it.
Yeah, it's that is something I try to, I don't have to fill out quite as much.
Right.
It's when we've got a keyboard player in there. In all honesty, I just really love being in a trio. I do. I love being able to take it wherever I want to go with a trio, man. And that's the bottom line. And I want that organic feel. And I think the more people you put in the mix, the more you have to kind of have this organization factor in the mix.
Right.
And unless everybody's been playing together for a while, and really they all really know kind of how I operate. And because I like when we play, I enjoy making like just on the fly calls. For instance, like we were playing Froggy's last Saturday, man, and it was packed room, and I just had this idea. I was like, you know what? And we do originals, and we'll sometimes, and we'll do covers, but it's probably half and half. So we started playing. I was like, all right, let's do Sissy Strut. And then I had the idea. I was like, you know what? We'll keep it in this Sissy Strut kind of funk, and then I'll sing Some Kind of Wonderful over it. And that's kind of what we did, and I just called it on the fly. And so like we were doing Sissy Strut, and there's like, just stay on the one. And then I started singing Some Kind of Wonderful, and they followed me. And we did one verse, one chorus of Some Kind of Wonderful. And I was like, all right, stay on the one. All right, well, in 4, we're going back to Sissy Strut. We're going to play the head. Dude. And yeah. So so I enjoy creating on the fly like that, and I think Donnell and Randy all enjoy it too, because we're just smiling and laughing and just having a good time creating something.
Now, have you ever tried to do that before?
Oh yeah.
So you have tried to sing Some Kind of Wonderful over.
Over.
I mean, did you sing Some Kind of Wonderful in the same key anyway, or did you?
Yeah, and I would sometimes. It's not necessarily a song I call up all the time, but it's a good. I guess you could call it a fluff song that all people will enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can stick it in between, 2 original songs, and get people, dancing, and something they can recognize. Yeah, so I'd been doing it kind of in my own little funky kind of New Orleans funk way, and then but we had never combined them, and just having fun.
That's awesome. I've found that, I mean, I see it all the time, but any performing guests that we've had, we all kind of feel the need to, like, we all want to play the stuff that makes us excited, but everyone has to play to the room and give everyone some, some popular music that they like. It's kind of part of the job description, because it's not always the Joe show or the Jason show. You got to make sure your guests, hear something they want to hear, and then they're more receptive to your music, is what I've found.
Yeah, man. I there's this fine line and balance, and I think all of us especially those of us that are trying to do original music, it's a fine balance, and you know, I've been playing live for a long time, and I feel like I know enough diverse material to kind of look at a room and figure out what to play, and I think it's something that you're constantly trying to improve upon, as I assume, and you know, managing the set list and trying to make sure everything flows to keep people's attention. But I know it's something I'm still growing at, you know, and we'll continue to hopefully get better at.
Yeah, it's always changing, and the audience is always changing. It's like you will never find the perfect answer.
No. It's there are some venues like Froggy's in Virginia Beach, you know, if you ask the audience, all right, y'all want original or you want a cover, they're gonna yell out original. Last night when I played the Vanguard,
Oh yeah, I'm there on Thursday.
Yeah, very
It's an awesome
yeah,
venue.
it was a packed house. And my friend Danny Lubertazzi and his band On the Verge, fantastic band. They played, and they brought out a lot of people. And then we did our set, and then we played a set together. And like his set was all covers. And my set was all my originals. And I'll be honest, I probably should have done more covers. But you know, we kept people in there for the most part. But dude, I look back on it and I'm like, man, maybe I should have just thrown some more bones at them. But we came back and we played like 3 Allman Brothers songs and killed it. But it was probably the most people I'd ever seen at the Vanguard, man, for at least a show that I'd been at, or other shows I've attended there. It was a good crowd there, man. Sold some CDs, sold some T-shirts. I was happy.
Right. Yeah, for any listeners out there, the Vanguard is the old Hampton Armory in Hampton, Virginia, that they converted into a brewery, distillery, music venue. It's really cool. I mean, it feels like you're inside a historic gymnasium. The acoustics can be a little tough, but they've got an amazing sound system in there. Like I love having a sound guy dedicated, because I rarely get that. And
Jeremy Goodell, he's fantastic, man, and I enjoy working with Jeremy, and he just now he's full on. That's what he's doing now. He just told me that yesterday. That's his sole job now, and that's really nice for him. And I think it's good for the Vanguard too, man. And hopefully they can just keep making the improvements they need to make it as good a venue as I think it can be, man. For sure.
Yeah. It's a good place. If you're ever in the region, they always have good music many days a week. The Vanguard in Hampton. So with your style, I mean, I've seen you play and you've ripped Joe Bonamassa kind of stuff, Satriani, but you also really get it. I've seen you use the diminished scale a lot, and I've seen you, I mean, you played jazz, like standard jazz as well. How did you get to where you are, like your sound?
Well, I think it's it's still an ever evolving process. When I first started out on guitar and I fell in love with it, I was really into metal, man. I was Megadeth, Pantera, I Metallica. Probably wouldn't have even started playing guitar if it hadn't have been for Metallica, Master of Puppets.
Aaron's so happy right now.
So
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, man. Oh God. When I heard that album, I went home and I picked up picked up an acoustic guitar, my dad's, and I was like just trying to figure out anything.
Yeah.
But
Sanitarium.
Yeah, sanitarium. Yeah, man. But I and so I started playing, that kind of stuff, and all I had was an acoustic at the time, one of my dad's acoustics, and but I was, I was determined that I was going to learn how to play that stuff, and I was fortunate that when I was really young, my mother insisted that I take violin, so I had the string and I knew what was, what it was like to play a stringed instrument. And so that helped immensely when I started playing guitar. So I was teaching myself basically how to play all the metal stuff through tablature and whatnot. And then I started taking classical guitar because, well, that's what they offered at the college. And so and that gave me another facet, of I guess style, but it didn't happen until I was probably 22, and I was up in Jackson, Mississippi at a jazz club, and I just, yeah, man, I got my butt handed to me on a silver platter at a jazz club, man, and I was just like, whoa, what is this? And and I just sat down and I started writing the songs they were calling out on a napkin. And I changed my major at school from music education. I changed it to jazz studies because I fell in love with it, like just instantly. And
That's cool.
and then through that, I realized, oh man, like I started understanding, like I had your Aaron, you'll probably know this one too, man. Like the Greg Howe, Ritchie Kotzen.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dude, I had that, and I was just like, I didn't understand it. I was just like, but I was just like, this is amazing. He's playing, but I didn't understand what they were doing, and but when I started taking the jazz studies classes and then getting into more jazz, and then I could, they're playing over this form, and I started understanding, okay, it's a form that they're playing over. And that kind of started my journey through jazz. And then getting into jazz helped me to appreciate the blues. And then I think I started getting into Robben Ford, and
I love Robben.
Hearing him how he'll put these bebop lines in sometimes to a really tasty blues solo, and then you start messing around with Jimmy Herring, and one of my favorite players, and man, so I was just always mystified by them. And so yeah, and then Frank Gambale, and so I'd pick up these Frank Gambale improvisation books, and I would surround myself with players that would challenge me, and I'm still growing.
That's awesome.
Sometimes I still have these, like last night at the gig, I think I practiced too much because sometimes we scramble our own brains, and I don't feel like I was quite myself, because I was thinking about all these things that I've been like kind of tinkering around, like, oh, I'm going to do this melodic minor up, minor third, and I'm going to do this lick here, and coming up with all these licks. And I think I just screwed myself. Yeah.
A lot of times
I'm going to do this whole tone lick here, and yeah, this would be great. Yeah, it sounds great as I'm practicing. Then I get to the gig, and I'm like, what the hell? Am I just learning guitar?
Yeah.
A lot of times I try not to, I'll learn something and I don't let it come out live until it's like that instilled in me. Like I might have played something at the house, like some style for a month before I actually, like when it starts to come out naturally without me having to think about it, I know it's time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I for me when it comes to totally, it's a matter of like when it comes out just instinctually and not forced. And but for me, when I get in a zone, playing wise, like last night, like our monitors weren't great on stage, and that sucked. So the band, it sounded like we were all speaking different languages. Like I was at a Italian restaurant with an Italian and a German and a French dude, and we were all trying to speak. However, the audience, they were all saying that we sounded great, but we all have had those gigs where it's just like crappy monitors on stage, and no, you just don't feel right on stage whatsoever. But I was just kind of, that was messing with me. The fact that I just kind of garbled my brains and like my instincts up a little bit. I hate those nights like that.
It sounds like you've got quite the interesting upbringing in terms of starting out on violin and then having that influence of, the metal in there, and then going to jazz. And that's very cool in terms of how it's kind of morphed and made you the musician that you are today, having that blues, and it's kind of got an aggressive sound. It's got a little bit of jazz influence in there.
Yes,
it's very, very cool.
Yeah, I've another guitar player, man, that I'm heavily influenced by, without a doubt, is Eric Gales. I love his playing. I love his style, and and there's that gospel tinge to it. Contemporary gospel. That was my very first studio gig in Mississippi.
Yeah,
and this dude heard me playing guitar, and he was like, "Dude, have you ever heard of Kirk Franklin?" I'm like, "No." And he played me some Kirk Franklin, and and I was like, "Oh my God, this is crazy good." So it kind of led me down this path of enjoying, contemporary gospel music, and that was still to this day one of a life-changing experience for me, to be in a church like that and with no music, no nothing, and the people playing this awesome music can't even tell you what key it's in, but they're making incredibly complex music, complex chords, and killing it. And so I was instantaneously put into like this zone of using my ear, and I'm using the jazz, at that time, what limited jazz knowledge I had, and then kind of going with my instincts on the blues. But you heard all these elements, and that's what made me appreciate contemporary gospel music. And with the stuff I'm writing right now, that's kind of what I'm trying to blend. Definitely the blues. Especially when it came to like me in the band and the direction I wanted to take my stuff in, I'm like, if I'm gonna do this, I wanted to incorporate the things I have the most fun playing, and that's funk, blues, with and a twist on like some of the choruses that I write, and some of the chord progressions I write. Hopefully, have a kind of a gospel kind of twist to it, and so that's kind of where I'm coming from, man, and trying to utilize all those tools I have in my back pocket.
Very cool.
So you do play in one of the military bands, and you've been doing that for 24 years. Do you feel like that experience has, even if I've heard you say it's not necessarily like, it's not your favorite style of music necessarily, but do you feel that as a musician you have grown from that?
Oh yeah. So yeah, man, I've been doing the military bands. It'll be 20 years, man. When I initially joined the military, 18, I joined to be a combat engineer, I had no clue what that was. All I saw was I got a bonus to do that, and it would help me pay for school. And so I joined my local National Guard unit, and with the bonus, the only thing I didn't even ask what the heck it was. I was just like, oh, I could buy that guitar I've been wanting. It was a horrible idea.
Priorities, man, priorities.
Horrible. It was a horrible decision. No, it actually made me a better person, and it kind of it gave me a little bit of discipline and some self-confidence that I didn't have in myself, man. But when I went to the engineer school at Fort Leonard Wood, that's when I realized, I was like, okay, this is not for me. This job is not for me. I need to go to school for music, and it helped to motivate me to do so. And then I did my time in the Guard, and I found out about the Army Band. I auditioned. I made the Army Band. And I was stationed at Fort Gordon, Georgia, and then with the Continental Army Band at Fort Monroe, Virginia. And while I was in the Army Band, I auditioned. I made the Air Force Band in 2004. So I transferred services. I went to the Air Force Band. And yeah, the whole time I've been in one of the crucial elements to me joining the military bands was because I wanted to play. I didn't know what style I liked better. I love all styles of music. I really, truly do. And I knew I had a lot to learn musically. And so I had great mentors in the military bands that I've been in. And I always looked up to to who I thought were the best players in the unit. That's who I wanted to be friends with. And those players, they helped kind of mentor me and challenge me and put me in situations that I grew from, whether it be, playing a Chick Corea piece with a jazz band, and or leading, numerous different rock ensembles or pop ensembles. All those gave me tools that, yes, I'm utilizing today on the outside when I gig on the outside. And it also left me with the mantra I've always lived by, and that's music first. And I live for music. And sometimes I think my only issue with the military bands is, you have it's quite a dichotomy there. You're in the military and you're an artist. It's totally like
opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, it's what? So as you progress through the ranks, as you progress through the ranks in the military bands, the less music becomes a part of you. And and I'll be retiring in May. It's the highest rank and then nope, but I've kept music first, and I'm happy to say that. And it's been a good gig, it's been a good gig, but it's time to move on.
So with the military bands, did you have the chance to perform anywhere like overseas, like in the Middle East for the troops or anything like that?
Yeah. I've done some really cool things, man. I've done numerous tours throughout the Middle East for the troops. But in fact, I getting back to this whole military band thing, one of my friends is Jack Sizemore, and he plays guitar for Jason Aldean. I met Jack on a USO tour. I was backing up John Popper, Blues Traveler.
Yeah.
And he was backing up Jamie O'Neill, and we were doing this run through all the bases in the Middle East for all the troops. And he and I became really good friends. And so the last show was always at Ramstein Air Base in Germany, where I was stationed. So it was cool, like hang out with Jack, and took him to a German restaurant, got some German beer, and came back to my house, and we picked around, played guitar, and and took him to my studio, and he's just like, dude, you got that Paul Reed Smith Hollow Body 2 over there, and he goes, I love those guitars. And I'm like, oh man, that's really cool, and he's like, and anyway, he was just, I was telling him how envious I was, I was like, man, you get to live in Nashville, you tour, you're doing songwriting. That's just awesome, man. And he's like, well, I'm envious of you because, man, because if I could go back in time, I would be doing, exactly what you're doing in the military. You're getting a steady paycheck with medical benefits. Get out of here, man. And he goes, that Paul Reed Smith, he goes, I had one and I had to sell it, pay my rent in Nashville for 3 months. So it kind of helped put things in perspective. Because sometimes, yeah, you miss out on opportunities that you just can't, or you might book a big show and you have to cancel it, or you might get asked to go on a tour, like and you can't because, well, the military. And so those opportunities that are arise as players as we go through our lives, that you would jump on had I not been in the military, those come and go, and sometimes that connection's lost. So that's been the downside of it. But the upside has just been constantly being able to play as much as possible throughout my years, man.
And you're paid essentially to be there at 9 o'clock in the morning and to practice and rehearse and do a little exercise, right?
Well,
it seems like overall it's a pretty good deal for a musician to come home to your family at night and be able to, you can play if you want, but you got paid to play all day.
Yeah, essentially, man, that's the deal. And I mean, in a nutshell, I mean, there's a lot more than that. You've got to do all the military training. You've got to go through all that, and like, especially, speaking on behalf of my Army brethren and brothers and sisters, like, dude, when 9/11 hit, there were no music instruments in our hand, man. We were, at an M60, or, guarding a gate or something, all that stuff goes out the window. And that's one of the reasons why I switched over to the Air Force. But, a lot of my Army bandmates, they've been deployed for a year and they don't see an instrument, they're guarding, helping support, the security, on base. But I know that you had asked, traveling throughout the Middle East, and I'm sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there, but I'll tell you, like, a cool thing I got to experience in Germany, man. Like, I was there. I spent a total of 6 years in Germany, in Europe, and traveled all throughout Europe and some of Africa. Wow. And to me, that's been the most rewarding time in my military career. And and especially towards the latter part of my time in Germany, we started doing these African partnership flights, and where we would go with a team of dudes, and we'd go into Ghana or Uganda and Senegal and work with the embassies and go out and play music out in these communities, and to strengthen, it's in the military, you're under public affairs, and so you're there to help strengthen relationships and countries, and to me, it felt good to be doing that on behalf of the country, regardless of politics or anything. through music, you know, you're there and you're putting smiles on people's faces, and you get to really represent America and be a true representative of America through music. Yeah, and not everybody's a butt.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I always say it, you know, music is a universal language, and it doesn't matter what corner of the earth you're from. We all can connect on this idea around music, and it's definitely that connecting point that brings us all together as humans. It's great.
Yeah, I was in, I can't tell you, man, like I was in, one of the best times I had was in Africa and Senegal, and getting to play. There was like this little jazz quartet, and they were doing jazz standards, and like there was a traditional, you know, electric bass, and then the guitar player though was using like this traditional, I forgot what they called it, but he was using one of their traditional kind of guitar things, and it was just insane. And we got to collaborate with them, and then and language, there was no language barrier. We were just like, let's play take 5. Okay, take 5, and we do it in a kind of fusion way, and with traditional, you know, Senegalese drums, and it was just so cool, man.
Yeah.
So that music's fun, man, and that's why I live for it. Yep.
That'd be cool to hear a jazz album that was made with. I mean, I know like what's the banjo player's name?
Bella Fleck.
Bella Fleck, yeah, he plays with Victor Wooten. Like he does some jazz on banjo, which is really cool. But it would be really cool to hear somebody do an album, and maybe it's out there.
It is
using unusual instrumentation to play jazz standards like that.
Yeah, Bella Fleck actually did a whole album in Africa with drums, and it's a really cool documentary. I think it's on Netflix or something. And it's insane, man. It's so cool, and they record everything live. Him playing with different people, and there's actually a tribe that he goes and plays with somewhere in Africa, and they do this traditional marimba that was built. They build it like, you'd have to see it, but it's insane. Do you know what I'm talking about, Aaron?
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out. I really do like Bella Fleck, and I mean Victor Wooten's really awesome to hear.
Yeah.
Well, and then another like really cool thing, if you're not familiar, and I'm blessed because he passed away a few years ago, was there's this Senegalese drummer who's the godfather of, I guess, godfather of percussion, and Dudu Ndiaye Rose is his name, and he lives right there in Dakar, Senegal. YouTube him, man. It's Ndaye Rose, and it's I think it's Doudou Ndiaye Rose. And anyway, this guy is insane, and he does these big orchestrated drum. It's like you know how you have these hippie drum circles. It's like that, but really good.
I love those hippie drum circles.
Of course you do, Joe. Of course you do.
It's right up my alley. No, I'd love to see that.
Man, the person I was working with at the embassy there, we were talking about him, and she's like, oh, you know, do that Rose? And we were all like, yeah. And she's like, she called him up. He invited us to his apartment in this building, and there's this, and there were all these, and there was this drum convention going on on his like behalf. That's like this annual thing, and there were people from all over the United States, all over the world there, up on top of this building with him in the center with his drum. and they put on a small show for the 5 of us that were there, and it blew my mind. And you see this, I think at that time he was probably 80 or something, and oh my God, yeah. When y'all check it out, you're gonna see him, and you're gonna hear this stuff, and it is just super tight. Yeah, people in colleges and universities study his drumming. Yeah, but
Wow.
that was probably one of the more epic musical experiences that I could think of, and I still get chills talking about it.
That's cool. Yeah, you can see the enthusiasm coming off of you. You talk about that. It was a really powerful experience. It's nice whenever you have they don't come very often, but every once in a while you do have that musical experience where you're just like, you feel like a different person. Like you'll never be the same knowing that exists and experiencing that.
Yeah.
You know, so, sometimes it's only every few years,
Yep.
that it happens.
Yep. That's very true, man. That's very true. That's definitely one of the more special moments that I'll always remember the rest of my life.
I really do like drum circles. I feel like they give the chance for non-musicians to come, people who aren't necessarily like us that are, you know, devote their lives to it, people to come together and connect over music. And although it may not be something that anybody would want to make a CD of and sell it, like it's just I think it's a positive thing for society to have people coming together to play hand percussion.
Yeah, man, I agree. That's a good hippie-minded thinking.
Yeah. I love it.
No, I agree, man. You know, it gives people, non-musical people, an outlet. As long as I can't hear it, I'm happy.
So speaking of monumentous experiences and things like that, I did notice that you played Conan O'Brien.
Yep. Yeah. That was on a deployment in 2015.
Okay.
And Conan took his show. He brought Grace Potter, Jimmy Vivino,
Wow,
a couple of comedians, Michelle Obama. Brought him over to Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where I was stationed, and yeah, we did a live show with him.
Wow.
And, in fact, that show actually re-aired. They re-aired it like a couple of weeks ago. I was like, came home late from a gig, and I turned on the TV, and I was like, holy crap, there.
Awesome. That's very cool. What a good experience.
That was a good experience, man. That was a lot of fun, and Jimmy Vivino is super cool. He and I still talk from time to time, and he's definitely somebody, that you can call a friend. Really good guy.
Now, do you ever intend to use some of these connections to potentially reach out with your band to try to potentially do something once you retire from the military? I mean, you've played with John Popper and you've played at Conan O'Brien, so you've played with some big names. Do you think maybe in the future you could, reach back out to them and say like, hey, I got this new band. We're trying to actually do something big.
Man, for me, like, I lived out in California for a while, and I try not to, in all seriousness, when it comes to friendships, connections, man, I really want it to be a pure friendship and not like some friendship because it's a good connection.
Right, a business deal.
Right, man. And out in California, that's what it felt like the whole time I was there. Like, you couldn't trust anybody. Everybody's got another. They're playing another angle on you, and it's all about what can you do for me, in this like subconscious back here, and I got kind of a little bit dark because of that, and so like, yeah, man, I don't feel comfortable necessarily asking, favors of people that I've met in the past or played with in the past, like that. I just don't. And for me, it's nice to be able to have a friendship. Jimmy knows what I'm doing. I have another good friend, Oz Fox, the guitarist for Striper. He and I did something together for the troops in Germany too. And he's super. I love Oz. Oz is just the coolest, man. But they all know what I'm doing, and I think I'm at a point where I think I just have to kind of do it my own way, man. And those people that know me, I think it's going to be something organic. I don't want to force it. I don't want to have to use connections in a way where they feel like I'm just using them. That's what I worry about.
I love what you're saying. I just want to be clear. My drum circles is a very hippie mentality. This is true. We share the hippie mentality. Just want to be friends with everybody. It's a beautiful thing, Jason. It's beautiful.
That's awesome. And that is where we're going to end this beautiful thing today. Join us next week as we get into part 2 with Jason Cale. We've got a lot of good things coming over the next couple of weeks, months. We've got a lot of cool people lined up. I'm really excited to have you listen to a lot of these people. If you haven't already, obviously stop over at Fret Buzz the podcast and drop us a line, let us know how we're doing, or better yet, stop over at iTunes and leave a review. Let everybody know what you think about the show. Don't forget, tomorrow night we're doing our live show. Tune in about 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. And if I don't see you tomorrow night, I'll see you next Thursday here on Fret Buzz the podcast. Thanks for listening.